Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the LaRouge Rugby Podcast where we focus on real Canadian rugby. I'm Stu Hardy, joined as always by Derek Brissett. Derek, we were off last week, but good news is we have an exciting interview coming up, but more on that later. Derek, how have you been, man?
I've been good, man. It's been a bit of a productive week. Working on some LaRouge rugby stuff that we've been working on that hopefully people will be able to see within the next month or so, which I'm really looking forward to. As you said, man, we got an awesome interview with a Arrows player, the third Australian Arrows player as well in a row. Or I guess Pete Smith's not a player, but the third Australian Arrow in a row.
Well, I've got to tell you that obviously no MLR rugby this side of the Atlantic. However, the European Rugby Champions Cup has finished its pool stages, and being an Osprey supporter, it has been a wonderful time. A last depth try sealed their victory over Leicester Tigers. So they will be facing in the round of 16 Saracens. So I think That's going to be a great game. I think that match doesn't happen until April, but
we should do a full podcast episode on that game.
Oh, we can't. We'll be in the middle of the MLR season.
I don't care. Special bonus episode just so we can yell at each other about our teams.
Yeah, we'll see how we'll see. Depending on the result, we'll see how we feel.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I was going to say, unfortunately, the Saracens didn't play this weekend, so I didn't watch any of it.
Well, they did.
No, they did not play this weekend. They did. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't know what you're talking about. I must have missed it. I don't.
What a shame! What a shame!
Yeah, I was too busy working on LaRouge rugby stuff. What were you doing? You were watching rugby. Like, put in some effort into the podcast we do together. What's wrong?
All right, I will ease your pain of missing your precious Saracens playing. We're going to bring it back to this side of the Atlantic because we have had some new kits been released. And let's start off not with the Toronto Arrows, which is what we would normally do, because we have to address what's been going on in Atlanta because they have released new kits and an entirely new rebrand. Now, as you know, we're a Canadian podcast. We focus on the Arrows. But
hey, Matt Heaton has to wear this.
Yeah, we can't really avoid talking about this. This has been a terrible rebranding exercise. The president of Rugby ATL has come out and said that they apologize for doing this vastly different colored rebrand of the team, the removal of the snake motif that had been prevalent in the team since its inception in 2020. They even had a Facebook Live, I want to say like a town hall, where questions could have been asked on their Facebook Messenger directly to them. There is no record of that meeting now at all. That has been scrubbed from Facebook's archive. This has just been really bad. But for those of you who have not been aware of what's going on, Rugby ATL's primary colors last year were black, red, and
silver.
Silver. I'd say gray, silver, those kind of colors. And they have now completely changed. Their logo is primarily green, a unnervingly similar green to the Chicago Hounds. And encircled around this new logo is peach, obviously a Georgia peaches, that does make sense, and a blue ring as well. The logo has changed completely, and I'll be honest, I like what they were doing with it. It did look like an improvement on the standard A, but
the A itself is actually cool. The ATL, it's cool.
Yeah, that looks really cool, but it is like the one positive that I can really talk about.
Well, I think, here's the thing. I don't think you're too wrong in saying that you like the A necessarily. Yeah. The issue, it's like the issue with this to me, and like reading through all of the Rugby ATL fan pages and I did listen to that press conference for 20 minutes before it just became too painful to listen to, since it looked like nobody actually wanted to be there. But I guess, good on them for actually publicly addressing it like that, even though it was difficult to watch at times. The issue though isn't necessarily like the design and stuff. It's this like one of the things that Amanda Windsor-White did say in both her letter and during the press conference, when asked about the colors, was that they wanted to differentiate themselves from the other teams in Atlanta, who essentially all wear red, mostly red and black. The Braves are red and dark blue. But you got obviously the Hawks, the Falcons, Georgia Bulldogs. They're all basically red and black. And they wanted to differentiate themselves. And I'm just like why? Like, I think that's a good thing that like some of the other teams in the MLR, Toronto, NOLA, New York, Seattle, DC, like they've all leaned into like the city that they're in and like the color scheme of a lot of those sport teams. Cause it's like at the end of the day, it's the colors that we associate the city with. Like to me, Atlanta's red and black.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's how you look like Atlanta, right? That's how a non-rugby fan that's used to watching like football or basketball or whatever, right, will turn on. You can turn on an Atlanta NOLA game last year, and if you've never watched rugby before and you just saw the words Atlanta and NOLA written on the scoreboard, you'd be like, NOLA's the black and gold team and Atlanta's the red and black team, right?
Yeah.
Because that's just that's the colors, right? And so I'm like, I really don't understand why they wanted to get away from that so much, because to me that's what screams Atlanta about the previous design. And I think the other thing that really stood out too, if you listen to the press conference, and I think this is where to me the biggest problem with the rebrand really lies. If you listen to the press conference, which I understand that you can't go back to now, is that correct, Stu? It's been deleted.
Yeah,
right?
it's been deleted. It's been removed.
Okay, so I wanted to like go back and double check this because I really don't want to misquote Amanda Windsor-White, but I can't go back and verify what her exact words were. So just kind of bear with me because I'm trying to paraphrase this from my memory of watching it, and I can't go back and rewatch the video. So if I am kind of wrong, feel free to kind of correct me on it. But early in the press conference, somebody asked the question of like why the team name is Rugby ATL, which by the way is the worst team name in the league easily now. But why it's Rugby ATL and not like the standard or North American kind of style sport team names that just follows the city team nickname formula.
Yeah.
And her response was they talked about she said they workshopped a number of ideas for a team nickname and a mascot, and they ultimately couldn't land on one. She talked about copyright issues for being worried that there'd be like a minor league baseball team somewhere that has the name. I'm not a copyright lawyer. I don't really understand that. You play in a league that has a team called the Warriors, which is the most popular team in the NBA, or arguably the most popular team in the NBA too. I don't understand that. There's so many sport team names that cross all sports. The CFL had two teams called the Rough Riders at the same time. Like I don't understand copyright law. So I don't really get her point on that, but that's probably more on me than on her. But what she was saying when she was saying that, and then they workshopped it and they couldn't come up with a name that they liked or that stuck with them. And my whole thought on is like, okay, like that's fine if you couldn't come up with one. But the issue isn't whether you could come up with one. It's that you didn't have to because the fans already did it for you. Right. Like, and I think that to me is where the biggest problem with the rebrand is it's like the Rattlers was something the fans created. Rugby ATL didn't do that. The Rugby ATL in their first year, that's not them. They didn't do that. And as the fans started calling, because Rugby ATL, RATL, Rattlers, we all get where this came from. But that was a fan-driven initiative, and that's what they started. And like Rugby ATL, who did never actually officially call themselves the Rattlers,
Yeah.
right? Which Windsor White brings up. It says like the fans were the Rattlers, but we never officially were. And but it's like the fans weren't the Rattlers. The fans called the team the Rattlers.
Yeah.
Right. And it just kind of feels like a major like disconnect and misconception on what the brand of this team is. Because even like Rugby ATL, the fans start calling the team the Rattlers, and Rugby ATL over the years has slowly like really leaned into the Rattler thing. Right. They had players were designing snake imagery. They painted a snake mural like in their gym, which apparently has been painted over now. So players were doing that with the snake imagery. They made an alternate logo that was a snake with Rugby ATL written on it. And ultimately too, in the 2021 season, they added snake scales to the jersey. Right. And they added snake scales to the jersey, and then they kept that through the 2022 season as well. So it's like, to me, that's where the problem lies, right? Is like, as a few fans have pointed out, the fans are the ones that created this brand, not Rugby ATL, not their marketing team, not the president of business operations or anybody or the company that hired us. Like the fans created the brand, right? And you took that away from them with this rebrand. And that's where the heart of it really lies. Because even at that, like the team name's still Rugby ATL. The Rattle name still would technically work, but you killed everything. Like now they're posting pictures of like pine trees and we are Tri-City and all that stuff. And it's like that could have been something really special for at Rugby ATL. Is you could have had a brand that the fans were all really passionately connected to because it was theirs.
Yeah.
It's like they're the ones that came up with it. They're the ones that started doing the snake stuff, right? The players jumped on board. Eventually, as I said, snake scales on jerseys. It's really cool, all stemming from a nickname the fans came up with. And that's amazing. That is so hard to get, like organically. Like you had a brand like just sitting there waiting to be for the taking, and you for some reason completely ignored it. And and I don't know. Like
I think it is just a case of too much too quickly.
It's a lot. Well, even I saw you're the one that posted on the Reddit, right? The black and red version of the logo. Yeah, like I don't know. I didn't read any of the comments on it. How did that get received?
Like, better than the one they put out. I've been going through like the Facebook comments on the new logo, and so first of all they include the reason of like, oh, why we've made this change of like it's to excite the city of Atlanta about its professional rugby team, convey why we're here, and we are yours. We want to be the disruptor, the renegade you can't say no to. We want to sound and feel like we are Atlanta. Be what is, and this is an absolutely true quote. Be what is cool, hip, and inherent in ATL. Culture, art, vibrancy, etc. If you have to say cool and hip, you are neither of those things.
But also,
first of all, saying, oh, we're hip, you may as well say, we're down with the kids.
Also, though, if you want to look and feel like Atlanta, be black and red.
Yeah.
Like
the second mistake they made, the second mistake besides the logo,
just the actual rollout,
it's the rollout. But even in these comments, people have been saying like, oh, you need to change it. It's unprofessional. It's a step back. We need something. They're like replying to their comments as Rugby ATL, saying that, one of our core values are PACE, PACE. C is for creating change. And it's like, not the logo. It's creating change in the culture of the environment. It's getting people to recognize rugby as a major sport.
And like I mean, I know maybe like I've seen like some people maybe trying to defend it by mentioning like, you go through sports history, and there's a lot of like, especially like way back in the day, like 100 years ago when pro sports was first coming out, people were trying stuff, right? It's
Yeah,
like the Toronto Maple Leafs, that's the third team name,
yeah,
before we landed on a couple different owner changes and stuff.
yeah,
Other iconic teams across pro sports, they've all, some of them took a
stumbled.
while to figure out what they were doing, but once you have it though, you got to stick
Mm.
with it. And the thing with Rugby ATL here is it's like that's the thing that made the previous brand special was nothing that the organization did. It was
Yeah,
everything that the fans did, and I feel for them that it's lost. And I know like you kind of look around the league, and I know like there's a handful of other teams that have changed their names or changed their name, changed the logo, but it's like you take a team like New York, um, and it's like New York feels like the brand is like evolving more than they've never really rebranded. It's just like evolved a little bit. Like they're kind
yeah,
of slowly figuring out what they want to be as far as like a brand. Which is maybe it's kind of weird to, be on your third team name in 5 years or but it was like but like they're kind of slowly figuring that out. And it's like every kind of little tweak that they've made, it's like, yeah, like it's been received a lot more positively than this because it's like you're still sticking with like you haven't changed, you haven't dived off of the orange and blue. You made a way better logo for the second season than in the first season, right?
yeah,
And then once you got that way better logo, you haven't really changed it other than you added the word iron workers to it, right? And then you
yeah,
also have iron workers, like which is like that's really good. Like you can evolve it. Nola unveiled their kit and it's the exact same as last year. And
yeah,
it's like, like once you have it, you can stick with it. Um, right. And but Rugby ATL, man, like it's just such a big whiff.
yeah. It's like I said, it's an exercise in,
Yeah, don't do it.
yeah, poor brand management, and definitely a lot of lessons that can be taken away from
Yeah.
something like this or the other MLR. I think it also doesn't help that between the end of last season and this rebrand, there's been another team whose primary color is green,
Oh,
and
like okay. I've seen
and that's another thing that comes up in
it.
the logo is that
Yeah.
one of the
It does look.
comments
Yeah.
say, yeah, this is very similar
It
to
is.
another MLR team, this one based in the Midwest.
Yeah.
And instead of acknowledging that, oh, yeah, there's like similarity to this, they say, you might be thinking, and you go look similar to Chicago. Yes, there are similar attributes, but keep in mind, we've rooted our colors and tone in Atlanta insights.
Yeah. Like the color
They
of
don't say
trees.
what the insights are.
Yeah, they said that the green's for the color of trees, which nobody but Atlanta has in North
Yeah,
America.
yeah,
The only place that has trees. Um, but yeah, like the white jersey looks like Chicago a lot for sure. Um, my only thing is just like you can have in theory you can have three green. Well, I guess Chicago has a black jersey. They don't even have a green jersey.
yeah,
But it's like in theory, I guess you could have like more than one green team in your league. Like as we mentioned before, you have, I guess, 8 black teams, right? And of the teams that aren't black, 3 of them are blue and white and red. Like you can have teams with the same colors. You just have to kind of use them a little bit differently. But yeah, it does look a little similar. But it does look a little similar, but that's not really the problem. Like that's secondary to it. The real problem, I think, is just I think the way this got rebranded, the reaction, it really just feels like the ownership of Rugby ATL just took something away from the fans,
yeah.
and
It, yeah.
that's a shame.
Well, yeah, I guess we'll have to see how the fallout for this continues. But well, it is what it is. But let's focus on something a bit more positive because we've had more kits come out and we've had the Arrows release their new
Mhm.
kit for 2023. And the Arrows, they don't really miss, do they? They
No.
get it like perfect 10 every time. And we have the home kit, which is blue with a white band across the center. And the white away kit, which is predominantly white, but the shoulders have a darker blue than the home kit's main blue. The home kit also has a sort of like a lightning pattern.
Both of them do.
They're both of them do?
Yeah, both of them do. It's just there's a couple pictures they posted. It's white on white.
Yeah, so it's hard to tell.
But, it's a little tougher to see, but it's there. They're on both. Yeah.
There's been a few sponsor changes. For example, it was announced today that Metro Supply Chain are the sponsor that's located just above the Toronto Arrows crest.
Yep.
And the new main logo across the jersey is TIRF, which stands for Toronto Inner City Rugby Foundation. So I'm not actually sure, but I think is this the first instance of an MLR team having a charity across their jersey?
I don't know. There's been a lot of teams that haven't even had a sponsor on their jerseys.
That is true.
Right. So but yeah, no, Turf's cool. What do you think of the Turf's cool? It's good to see them kind of partnering with a like grassroots rugby organization. I'm really curious to see because the Arrows just kind of teased it on Twitter. They said with more to come. So I'm curious what that more to come is. But it's cool to see. It's cool to see like a nice that, and it's like a Toronto brand and stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Like
especially it's like the I in Turf has the CN Tower.
Yeah. It actually works pretty well on the jersey. Maybe that's because it's a rugby foundation, right? So it's maybe there's a little bit of thought onto how this would look on like rugby gear put towards that logo design too.
To me, I was thinking like maybe if the home kit had been like completely blue with the lightning bolts and the Turf logo had been in white, but actually with the white band, which is accented by gold, because there's gold accents throughout both jerseys. I think it just makes it pop a bit more. So I actually like it better like that. Yeah. Well, this is why I'm not in jersey design. So, and on the inseam of the jerseys, it has one team, one target, and a continuation from what it's had in previous years as well.
Yeah.
And I think the good thing as well is that when the jerseys were advertised by the Arrows themselves, it wasn't the CGI view of what it looks like. It's actually an actual jersey that's just it's being held. So it's similar to having it as flat as possible, but you can also get the feel of it. This is a real jersey. This is what it actually looks like, which I think is just far more pleasant on the eye. I think there's, even in their demonstration of the promotion of this, when they announced like the home and the away kits on social media, they've got more Toronto motifs. They've got like shots of the city as part of the background, and they still contain clouds and flying, because obviously that's the origin of the Arrows logo. But this looks really good so far, and the only way it can get better is just seeing the guys actually wear it and winning games in it. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, I was gonna say every jersey looks good with a shield in front of it, right? So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, like I really like it. I first saw it, and it's like I feel like they're one of those kits that it's like the more I look at them, the more I love them.
Yeah,
I really love the lightning bolt pattern on it. The away kit kind of feels, at least to me, kind of feels like a little bit like a hockey jersey almost, like a kind of with the colored shoulders and stuff. And then like the all white base. So I like that. I think that's really cool. Where does this rank for you on the 5-year history of Arrows kit?
Oh,
yeah, I'm putting you on the spot for this.
So I'd say their worst kit is their first kit, but I think that doesn't mean it's bad. It's just the worst one that they've had. But you do want to start worse, and then everything you do after that get better. So
I don't really think the Arrows have ever had a bad kit.
Yeah,
personally. But
I think their
where do you rank them?
2020. I think their 2021 kit with the collars, that's definitely number one.
That's
I'd
one
say
for
this
you.
is
Mm.
I'd say this is either like second or third. I think it's hard to
Yeah, I think.
bring one on.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of with you on that. To me, personally though, I feel like these are like the arrows. Like the arrows have had a really good 3 year run here,
Mhm.
of maybe having top top two, top three kit in the league, top one kit in the league. Right. I think this to me, this jersey kind of feels like the arrows like the return of the Jedi jersey, kind of.
Yeah,
To me, it's like I thought 2021, where they had the collars and stuff, as you alluded to,
yeah,
Unreal kit. It's that's the like a new hope. Unreal kit. It's amazing. Had the collars though. The players apparently didn't like those.
yeah,
And then I think last year, 2022, that's like the Arrows Empire Strikes Back, where it's like they're flawless.
yeah.
They added the gold accents to the arrow, to the hoops that were all pointing up with the arrows. I loved the blue, like the two shades of blue on the kit. Um,
Hmm.
Love that. And then this one kind of just feels like I still think I like Empire Strikes Back. I still like it a little bit more, but like Return of the Jedi is still an absolutely unreal movie.
Yeah.
And basically the trilogy's flawless as a whole. So yeah, can't complain. I'm with you. It's like maybe like, probably like their second
Yeah,
or third best kit so far, but like they haven't really missed on one at all
yeah,
yet. Yeah, I loved last year's. The thing is though, what I want your input on, as bad as this sounds, as
yeah.
shameful as I am to admit it, I don't have an Arrows jersey yet. So I know, right? Yes. For anybody listening, Stu basically just threw his headphones off and he has left the podcast. So I'm doing this show on my own until Corey Thomas shows up halfway through this at least. Um, but so okay, Stu's back now. All right, we're good. But he looks like he's engaged again after being absolutely flabbergasted by that statement. But so I'm thinking like I gotta buy one at like this
Yeah,
year, right? Like this
yeah.
has gone on far too long. So what are we thinking? Blue or white?
I
Home,
think
away, hold out for a specialty one? What are we doing?
I'd say, well, first of all, you can never have too many rugby jerseys.
Buy
So,
all of them?
yeah. Well, I'd say if you have to get one, I'd say get the home jersey. And then if
Mm.
a special kit comes out, you remember you do have to bid on them. And though the bidding does go for charity, you have to have a competition with
Yeah,
potentially someone else. So, keep that in mind. So I'd say, you got to get the home jersey. I think
get the home.
I'd say of the two, I'd say I'd pick the home jersey. Also, this may just be me, but I know some other people will. White is very easy to get a stain on it, and then
Mm.
you've stained that jersey forever. So
Well,
I prefer a bit darker colors, maybe like
oh,
hide any issues. But I mean, it's up to you.
well, I mean, some of us have no problems eating and drinking food.
Hey, I have problems. I have no problems whatsoever. It's when a rugby ball comes straight into my face as I'm drinking a drink and I'm just enjoying the day. It's not even coming from the pitch, it's from someone
Well, then
behind
then
me.
I would question what you did to Sam Malcolm because he doesn't miss, so he obviously did that on purpose.
I stood behind the post one time and it's
Yeah.
anyway. All right, so we've got
Well,
another jersey to talk about. Actually, now you did say that Nola Gold have got jerseys, but it is literally the same jersey as last year.
and
So you can watch our previous episode last year and you'll have the exact same information. The new jersey that's come out that is different is actually Old Glory DC. So they had the same jersey for the last 2 years, with stars and stripes across the torso, but they have changed it. So the flag that they've got on their jersey now is the flag of DC itself. So the home kit is a lovely like navy color with
mhm.
3 red stars, 2 red stripes, pairs perfectly well with their Cuisine Solutions sponsorship. And the
Does look
alternative
good.
jersey, which is their white kit. So the blue is replaced by white. The stripes on the side, instead of being red, are blue this time. And I'm sure DC fans were very grateful that if they bought a kit in 2021, they didn't have to buy another one in 2022. At the same time, I really like this new kit. It's, something it's different but the same. It's like enough to make it unique, but enough to make it different as well. So, yeah, I think that's a really good choice.
Yeah, I really like it too. It's one of those things. So it's like I understand that the team is called Old Glory, and that which is the American flag. So draping themselves in the American flag worked completely. I liked those jerseys last year. However, it did really make them look like the USA national team. And in fact, they had a better jersey than the USA national team, and the USA national team should find Old Glory's previous jerseys and use them, because I think that would actually be great. This kit though that Old Glory came out, it's a lot cleaner. It's definitely a lot cleaner. It's really and it feels a lot more like a team from Washington D.C. as opposed to the USA national team. It's a lot more in that kind of vein, and you look around the DC sports landscape, it's much in the same kind of aesthetic as like the Capitals, the Wizards, and the Nationals, kind of playing up a little bit of the stars. A little bit of the stars and stripes, definitely using the American red, white, and blue color schemes, but also kind of doing it in a way that doesn't necessarily make you look like Team USA. Which I think the previous kit had. And I didn't necessarily think it was a bad thing. Like, I thought the jerseys looked good, but it's like, it really looks like that it should be an Eagles jersey as opposed to an MLR team's jersey. And this is just kind of a cleaned up version. I think they nailed this one. I'm really psyched about it. I think they look good. It's a nice shade of blue. I'm curious though, because they haven't said what like the anchor on the back of the jersey means. And I know there's a Scottish flag on the back, which I guess is because they have like this Scottish partnership thing. But there's an anchor, and I can't find an explanation for that anywhere.
Well, yeah, I'm sure one will come out soon enough. And
it looks good though. I don't understand your little symbolism things, but it looks good.
All right, so we are now waiting on only two more teams to release their kit, and they are both the Texan teams, Dallas and Houston. So no word from them at the time of recording. So we'll, keep our noses to the grindstone, and hopefully we'll have something before the start of the season. But can't guarantee anything. All right, we're going to keep it with the Arrows because the team has announced their coaching and team staff for the 2023 season. When it comes to the coaches, the group remains the same. Pete Smith's still the head honcho. Rob Howley's the attack coach. And Corey Hector is still the director and head coach of the academy team. And we do have a few changes, though. In conjunction with Rugby Canada, Alex Lee is the new head of performance, having previously worked with Ealing Trailfinders. And Richard Owen is the new head performance analyst, having previously worked with the WRU as well as other teams. And Shane Carhill is the new assistant strength and conditioning coach. So we wish the guys all the best. Hopefully they can make a real impact with the Arrows and, be possibly a deciding factor when it comes to games in the 2023 season. Now we move away from the 15s game. We have to briefly talk about the sevens. It was the New Zealand sevens this past weekend, and it has been announced that New Zealand will not be one of the locations when the World Seven Series changes for the next season. So this was the last time for the foreseeable future that we'll have games in Hamilton. And Canada will be glad that it's the last time they'll be playing in Hamilton because these results did not look good. The women's sevens finished 11th and the men's sevens finished 14th. The women's sevens are still in the top half of, or the upper part of the sevens table. The men's sevens are now, I believe, 13th or 14th in the world. And
Yeah, they're right on the bubble.
yeah, with only 12 teams competing next year, this is real crunch time for the men's sevens. They need to start putting performances together, start getting a few more games in the win column, especially in the pool stage. I know that it's a young team and definitely a curve, especially against some of the more established teams. But they're now getting it's like Uruguay are making inroads against them as well. It's
Yeah.
teams that they previously defeated. They're losing to. They really need to turn this around. And they can do so at the next stage, which is this weekend in Sydney, Australia. And if you'd like to watch any of those games, they will be on CBC and CBC Gem. So make sure to tune in.
And if you do miss the games, one of the cool things that CBC, the website, and CBC Gem, the app, does is they actually cut the Canada games by themselves.
Yeah.
So I missed most of the games when they were happening live, but I just went back through and watched all the Canada ones because they have it as like a playlist. It's actually like a really cool feature of the app if you happen to miss any of the games.
Yeah, so if you want to catch some sevens action, that'll be a way you can do so. Now, before we move on to this interview that we've got coming up with a special guest, Neil Davidson posted an article, and we found it in the Times Colonist. It was reported by the Canada Press and first published on January 23rd, 2023. And it is titled Rugby Canada Meets with World Rugby to Discuss High Performance Future. So the article talks about Canada finishing fourth in the Women's Rugby World Cup in New Zealand last November, and poses the question, how long can Canada's amateur program compete with countries like New Zealand, England, and France that provide their women with central contracts? And it mentions that Sophie de Goody and coach Kevin Rouet talked about the need for investment and the need to develop now. It even mentions that the Canadian men's team serves a cautionary tale because back in their amateur days, in 1991, they made the quarterfinals of that World Cup. But in the 7 tournaments that followed, they never made it out the pool stage with a combined 4 wins, 19 losses, and 2 draws. Even mentioning that they failed to qualify for the 2023 World Cup. So you can find the full article. It has been tweeted by Neil Davidson, and you can find him at Neil M. Davidson on Twitter. And it highlights Rugby Canada is featured as well because obviously they're the ones communicating with World Rugby, and this focuses mainly on the 15s game. They say that because the sevens is with the Olympics, it can get funding from the federal government instead. So the focus has been mainly on 15s, and no punches drawn. It says that Kingsley Jones expects 54 Canadian eligible players in MLR this season, but no one is getting rich, with the top salary for MLR players at $45,000 US. And saying that whilst the Toronto Arrows have helped, there's obviously things that need to be addressed, such as the lack of home games for the men's and women's 15s teams, saying that I believe the game against Italy was the first women's home international in 7 years, which is staggeringly inexcusable. But as I said, listeners and watchers can find that on Neil M. Davidson's Twitter account. And it does show the significant gulf that Rugby Canada has compared to the tier 1 nations of rugby. And that it's not as simple as, just start a league of women's rugby and it'll be fine, because it's, you need to work on the resources. They need to professionalize the program. They need to look after the players once it's done so, and avoid the issues that arose with the men's team. So it's definitely worth a read, I'd say, and obviously hoping that meeting between Rugby Canada and World Rugby can give a big boost to its focus on the women's team, but ideally the men's team as well.
Yeah. I mean, so obviously we're recording this on the Tuesday, so I guess that meeting happened today in LA. So I mean, I hope it went well. Rugby Canada definitely needs something, needs a little bit of financial help and assistance. So I mean, I hope it went well. It's it's that the players definitely need more games and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like we all know, like no, it's not necessarily a secret of needing like more game time, whether that's MLR at club level or that's in more international tests. And I believe I was trying to skim through that article because I thought I read it in the article, but it's like I believe Rugby Canada says they don't have any test matches scheduled yet.
Yes.
That was from the okay, good. I was trying to skim through it. I couldn't find it real quick, but it's I thought I remembered reading that, so I'm right in remembering this correctly.
Yeah. So the quote says, still, Bombra says, at this point, there are no fixtures confirmed this year for both the Canadian men and women's 15 squad.
So, I mean, that's obviously a problem.
Yeah.
Right. That would need to be addressed. And I mean, it's so I mean, I hope it goes well, like for Rugby Canada. I think that's the whole thing. It's like, we know obviously this has been tough, like a couple of years for Rugby Canada, the players, the fan bases, the women's team obviously had unreal success at the World Cup. Finished fourth, played probably the best game of the entire year against England. We're really close to beating them. It took one of the best tries ever scored to beat them. But as everybody talked about after, it's like, well, okay, well, like, what do you do now? Because you're clearly close to England. You're maybe a step behind England, but how do you take that extra step if there's no resources to help you take that extra step, right? So hopefully this amounts to something. And I mean, hopefully we hear maybe what the results were and maybe a little bit more details as the weeks go on. But as of right now, I guess that meeting just happened today at this point in time. So perhaps by the time people are listening to this, perhaps we know more information. But as of right now, there's nothing. I just hope it went well. Rugby Canada needs this. It's great that they're meeting with World Rugby. Yeah, Rugby Canada needs this. So hopefully it will.
Yeah, it's obviously a lot of meetings behind closed doors, but hopefully the end result is a net positive, funding coming through for Rugby Canada, as well as the start of future development, so that we're not in the position where it's however many decades down the line where even the women's team aren't able to qualify for the World Cup, and we're basically just banging our heads because the same things happened all over again. Right, I think that's enough of us being a bit negative. As promised, we do have an interview with a special guest that is coming up right now. So, through the magic of editing, we will disappear and we'll be back with our guest in 3, 2, 1. And we are back. And as promised, we have a special guest with us. He is one of the latest signings for the Toronto Arrows. And from what I've heard, he's also the Toronto Maple Leafs good luck charm, as we found out last week when he went to the game. And, Arrows, and not the Arrows won. Well, the Arrows will be winning at some point, but the Maple Leafs also run last week. Ladies and gentlemen, Corey Thomas. Corey, thank you so much for joining us for this episode.
Thank you guys for having me.
Did you enjoy that game?
Oh, definitely. No, it was very fast, and we ended up getting good seats. So, right up close, and it was entertaining for the whole 3 periods.
Were you able to understand the officiating? Because I believe this was the Panthers game that you went to that confused like everybody because no one had any idea what was going on.
Yeah, luckily I had Lucas Rumble next to me, and he was explaining a lot of things. But
I mean, with some of the calls in that game, I'd be impressed if anybody actually was able to tell you what was going on.
yeah, no, it was just it was a good environment, and I definitely will go again.
Did you go to a Raptors game later this week too? Just
Yes,
hitting up all
I was there for Saturday night. Yeah,
nice. How was that?
Yeah, no, it was good fun. We didn't have as good of seats, but it was still a lot of fun. Like I wish we could have pulled away with the win at the very end, but it was regardless still entertaining. It was a good environment.
Any other items on your little Toronto preseason tourism kind of bucket list or anything?
I'm pretty good now. I think I'm set till my partner gets in, then we'll probably go a bit more out and explore. But in terms of sporting, I think I'm good, and I'll go back again. But we're pretty happy.
Great to hear. Well, when we have these interviews, we always start with similar questions because everyone has a different rugby background. So, Corey, what got you started in rugby in the first place?
So it was when back when I was 9 years old, and it was actually in Australia when I was playing my first ever Australian football league. So it was just the AFL. And I played the one game, and there's a photo of me and my dad. I'm looking up at him, and I say, "Look, this game is not for me. I don't like it, Dad." And then he goes, "That's fine." And we get in the car on the way home, and I see a bunch of kids playing rugby, and I just go to my dad instantly and say, "Dad, would I like that sport?" And he didn't tell me, but he was a big rugby player in his day, and my mother's from New Zealand, so she really supports rugby. They ended up doing a big U-turn and speeding off, and they signed me up that day, and then haven't looked back.
Nice. So you obviously, again, like obviously sounds like the family influence a little bit there, maybe a bit of chance driving past the rugby practice on the way home. Was there anybody in particular that, like, say, like a coach, your parents, family, friends, anybody that kind of was made a really big like influence on your rugby career to get it going, or to even help you, as you started advancing all the way up to the professional level?
My parents, by far, they've been my greatest supporters, and for all the way up until I did make my first year at pro, they supported me the whole way, and my whole goal was just to make them proud. And then as soon as the dream became a reality, then it was kind of, oh, okay, now focus on just doing the best that I can and continue to make them proud.
When you were growing up and you were getting, obviously having the influence from your parents as well, was there someone that every time they stepped onto the pitch, you just loved to watch them play? Like as soon as you found out they were playing, you'd be sat down in front of the TV or either in the stands, just watching them.
So when I was younger, it would be weird because like Nathan Sharp, because he was just a bloke that I was like, I feel like I can be like him. He was big influence on the lineouts, and we have a very similar running sort of style even today. So, and it was he just did his job. But as I sort of progressed in my career, what I really grew into was playing with exceptional players and watching them while on the field really stood out for me. So even when I first went pro, playing with Billy LaRue and Adam Thompson, that was my first experience as a professional player playing, and I got to be able to play with them, and that was just being able to learn off them and just watch them play. Like especially Billy LaRue, he could pull out any play from nothing. And then more recently, I could name Dave Dennis, Adam Lashikoopin, Matt Giddo. Those players, whenever they're on the field, watching them do what they do, it was incredible, and I'm still, I'll never forget those moments.
Well, you've mentioned a few Australian legends, and speaking of your own legendary career to date, you started out with playing for Perth Spirit in 2014, and then Brisbane City in 2015. So my Australian geography knowledge is limited at best. But what is the rugby culture like on the different coasts of Australia?
So there's a lot more support over east. Perth definitely they have their Super Rugby team, but if you go say Brisbane or Sydney, they're their clubland is it's another level. Perth is trying to build its culture, but when I was at Perth Spirit, had back in the NRC days, it was predominantly super guys, like Super Rugby players. So in terms of the environment, there wasn't too much of a change because a lot were from over east. So there wasn't too like in terms of like the grassroots. There's a big difference, but the Super Rugby stuff is the same. It's just like they might have a bit more of a support over east.
Yeah, so obviously, prior to coming over to North America, you also spent some time in Japan, playing for the Kamaishi Sea Waves, Cannon Eagles, and then ultimately for the Sun Wolves and Super Rugby. Although that season was cut short due to COVID. What was we kind of talked to Pete Smith a little bit about it in an episode a little bit back, but how was the experience playing rugby in Japan? And did you notice any like kind of differences in how like you grew up and the way you were training in Australia versus how everything was done over in Japan?
It was definitely an eye opener because firstly the different cultures. I kind of when I went over there, I was 109 kilos, and I was a chubby 109 because I was always trying to put on weight because I could never do it. And I got put into reality check real quick. I did my first ever Bronco, and it wasn't a good score, and they broke me. I was falling asleep I was almost falling asleep in the team dinners, like at the end of the day, and I was absolutely beaten. But they managed to completely switch my whole sort of fitness and everything within a month of getting absolutely flogged. So it was a huge eye opener, and then it really told me that I have to get to this next level because it pretty much ignited it again, saying, no, you're not good enough. You're not as good as you think you are. You need to be so much better. And then it always just kept a reality check that, you can always be so much better no matter what level you're at.
Could you explain what exactly a Bronco is? Because every time there's like training camp and stuff, this term is obviously thrown around a lot, but just like, would you be able to kind of like what makes it so hard and like what exactly are you guys doing during a Bronco?
So it's pretty much just like a continuous shuttle. You have to go out 20 meters and back, 40 meters and back, 60 meters and back, and you do that continuously for 5 reps. It's come in the past, I think maybe the past 8 years, is trying to be a fitness identifier for rugby specific fitness. And it's just a grueling, five sub by 4:30 to 5:30 sort of brutal sort of fitness test just to get an idea of where everyone's at. Different places around the world use it more frequently. Some people just do it as an identifier that says everything's changing. So that's the beauty about the development in fitness. There's always going to be something new coming out. But over the past few years, the Bronco has been the highlight of most pre-seasons.
All right, so it sounds like you had a very enjoyable time in Japan. Obviously, the 2020 season didn't go according to plan, and the coronavirus pandemic effectively ended many rugby competitions across the globe, including Major League Rugby's 2020 season. So how did you go about getting noticed by the LA Giltinis? And what were the motivating factor or factors that convinced you to join?
So when COVID hit, it was rough because I finally got my dream of playing Super Rugby, and then it got cut short. But luckily, my agent was straight on it. He got a call from the LA Giltinis, and as soon as I heard the squad that they were putting together, I was sold instantly, just purely because I know it would be so special to play with the guys with that star team. It wasn't hard to sell LA, but it was, and also when you add that squad together, it was. I didn't have much. So I think I said yes that straight away.
Quick negotiations.
Yeah. I remember the coach Darren Coleman trying to explain it to me, and then when he called, I was already sold, and we were just. As soon as he told me the squad that was getting put together, I was done. He didn't need to negotiate or anything. I was just ready to go.
Yeah. So obviously, when we asked you like earlier, some of like the players and stuff that you looked up to, you mentioned some of your LA Giltinis teammates, Adam Ashley Cooper, Matt Giddo, Dave Dennis. So you got to play in LA. So what was it like playing with some of those legends of the game while also looking like you guys were having quite a bit of fun while doing it too?
Yes, because it was our, we're the first LA team coming in. It was special in that, and it also brought a lot of challenges, meaning that we had a lot of targets put on us. But luckily we did have those players that were involved because they really led the ship well, and we couldn't have been more prepared going into it purely just through their leadership. Like they really opened my eyes into how people can lead a team because I really respect who they are and what they've done.
Well, definitely when the LA joined and the name Giltinis was first publicly announced to the wider MLR community, there were a few questions to be asked, a few raised eyebrows, but it seemed to go well. In doing my research, I remembered that you guys actually did your preseason in Hawaii. So, I mean, that would have sold me just on the grounds of, oh, you get to be in Hawaii for a number of weeks just doing preseason rugby training. Now, my Bronco would have been definitely worse than any you've ever seen, Corey, but especially coming in with this like reaction to the name and stuff and all these big names coming in. How did being the new boys of the league suit you and your teammates?
Well, it was a challenge that we all knew was coming. We all accepted, and the good thing about the blokes that we had there, we just wanted the challenge. We were all accepted, and we were all getting excited from it. So anything that happened, we we're happy to go against the grain and do things the way that we wanted to do. If it caused a bit of havoc, it was just more fuel to the fire, and it really drove us for just who we are and what we did.
Obviously, you guys had a ton of success in that first year, ultimately winning the Shield. Is there like a moment in the season where you guys maybe were like, as you said, it's the first year of the franchise, a whole group of guys that probably have never really played together before. Is there a moment in the season where you guys kind of realized that you had like a real shot at winning the Shield in the first year in the league?
So I think the belief that it just was from the start, we had the belief, and that if we didn't believe it, it was you weren't in the right spot. So I think from the start, it was just we had a really good culture set in from the very get-go, and we're out there to, just go out there and win. That's the mindset we had from the start. Whereas I'll probably go into the next season that didn't work out so well at the start. There's probably more of a special moment that happened earlier on in that year where, things weren't going well. We weren't having that start. We had the pressure that we were trying to go back to back. So there was a lot of stigma around it. But a bit that does stand out to me is that there was a moment where the coaches had a plan to send us all to the beach, where we all sort of was kind of where we sort of designated ourselves. And it was where they set us all down. We all wrote our why. So why we wanted to be here, why we do what we play this sport. And it was really special for me because it really opened up a lot of the reasons why I wanted to do this. And it was a point where everyone wrote all their whys, and once it was done, it was written on a piece of paper. Dave Dennis drew a big line in the sand, and it was pretty much a metaphorical. It was very symbolic, where we pretty much said, look, this is why we want to do it. We know we need to be better. Let's cross the line here as a team so that we can forget what's happened and we'll move on. And for me, all that stuff's real special for me. So once we did do that, I think that was a huge reason for why we ended up turning that whole season around, obviously, for the remainder of the season.
Towards the second half of the season, you obviously have Austin were coming up as being maybe the top of the West, and obviously having the same ownership group was a bit of a rivalry going on. Was there ever discussions with you guys of all right, we've got to beat Austin. We have to prove that we're the better cocktail team in MLR and show them what we're made of?
Well, 100%. I think with the culture that we had, we'll happily would have made any sort of game a big event, because that's the mindset we wanted to have, that every game was, there was a reason for why we're doing it. And for Austin, we didn't obviously had to think about a reason. We all just knew the reason, and it was always fun playing against them. So it was always a good contest.
You've kind of mentioned the word culture a lot, talking about what you guys did in LA for the past 2 seasons. What was that like, being able to say build that culture from scratch? This is a brand new team. There's obviously nothing. There's nothing there before, right? The culture is going to be determined by you guys who are in the room for that first year. So what's it like kind of building that culture? Because I mean, from an outside looking in a little bit, you got guys like riding like bikes and stuff on the sidelines, and with the flags and stuff, some crazy dress kind of as you're showing up to games too. Like, it looked like you guys were having a lot of fun. So like, what was the culture like there?
So we had a little slogan where it was LA for love and attitude.
Okay.
And what we would have, especially that first year, is the love, and you would have a photo of your families or what really drove you, why, who you love, in all that area of that, but then plus your attitude, which showed highlights in your career, photos of highlights in your career, and you have that wherever you went on a game, and so like that was just planted everywhere. So you had the reasons why you're doing it, and the attitude, meaning then that just put into action really. So in terms of the culture, they had all that flashy, that nice stuff. That's all promos and all the fun. But when you dig down into it, the love and attitude, the LA love attitude was really the driving factor. Because we were a huge family, and we just were able to build that from scratch, which was lucky that we had good people involved to be able to do that, because it can go either way. It's hard to build a culture that shapes something that we all work well with.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, as we've alluded to before, you guys were the champs in 2021. So what was that moment like for you guys when it all came together at the end and you got to lift the shield in front of your home fans?
It's a feeling that I really can't describe, mate. It's an addictive feeling, and it's something that I want it again. So it's like it was the best week of my life, and it's such a surreal feeling, and the most that I get out of it is that I want it again, and that's the reason why it was so special to have it with other players who have been through it before, because they knew how special it was. So they made sure that the people that may have been their first time, that they really enjoyed it, because they know how rare they are and how special they really are. So, luckily we were able to really enjoy it when we did do it. And as I said, it's an addictive feeling, and I hope that I get to have that feeling again.
Trust us, as Toronto Arrows fans, we really want you to feel that again. We're really hoping that comes through for you.
Yeah.
So the other big question then, what was the party like after you guys won?
It was a lot of fun. It was a wild, and no, it was special. It really was.
Any elaborations? I'm pretty sure like the police and federal agencies don't actually listen to this podcast. Not much to worry about.
No, I'll keep those memories locked away and keep them special to myself.
Save them for the autobiography.
Yeah,
I try with everybody that's won a shield, and yet most of it's just seems to be like they're unwilling to. They don't want to like compromise themselves willingly online. I guess I don't know.
It was very special, mate. And,
it was a good time. All right, that's fair.
We all know how the 2022 season ended in the West. Long story short, you've now ended up in Toronto for the 2023 season. Obviously, big change being in the Great White North is having your a Canadian winter for preseason training instead of the lovely LA coast
and Hawaii
as well. But what are you looking forward to the most about playing in your adopted homeland?
So just playing with these guys, like when I did sign, my main focus was to see how can I help Rugby Canada. That was my main focus. And there's a few blokes in the Toronto Arrows squad that I really want to focus and work with to make sure that they're prepared the best. Like I can do what I can to make sure they're prepared when they go back, when they go onto the big stage playing for Canada. That was my main focus, and that's what I really would look forward to seeing them grow, and I hope I can do as much as I can to help them.
I also realized then doing research for this, because I was going through the games of the Arrows playing LA in 2021 and 2022. Neither team has actually played those games in LA or Toronto. I think it's the first time in MLR history that teams have played each other and not played at home for both games.
Yeah, no, it was a different experience, wasn't it? But like Vancouver is in Victoria, it's a special place to play, and like especially with doing the kind of stuff the year before in Victoria, it was very special for me to go back there as well. So
oh, that's good.
Still enjoyed it.
So I know you mentioned the Bronco a little bit earlier on this episode, but just like how is training camp going? I mean, you guys are about 2.5 weeks into camp so far. What's your thoughts on how things are progressing, how you say gelling with the established players that are on the team, how maybe some of the new guys, some new rookies on the squad as well, how are they looking? Just overall, what are your thoughts on camp so far and how things have been progressing in the early stages of the 2023 season?
Yeah, so we're all working very hard, which is it's very good. Like, we've got all the right attitude and the right mindset. So we've got a great bunch of blokes that are willing to put in the effort. And, it's all about just gelling together now and making sure the next few weeks before the season starts that we fix everything that needs to be fixed, so we're best prepared for when the big season starts. So I reckon we're doing really well. We're working hard, and that's the main thing.
You guys got your first preseason game coming up this Friday. It's in Michigan. It's against the newly renamed Rugby New York Ironworkers, who are the defending champs at this moment. And so, like, what are you guys kind of like looking for out of the preseason game? Is the win the most important thing, or is it more about building some team chemistry, maybe working on some set piece plays, trying some things out, getting everybody some minutes? How do you guys looking into like a preseason game, and what's kind of like your mindset as you head into one of these types of games?
So it's the thing about these games, it's all purely for yourselves. Like, you need to find out where everyone's at in terms of how we're gelling, how we're moving together, how the knowledge around a set plays, and it's how quick, because with the MLR, the preseason's so short, and it's crucial that the players are able to adapt and learn quickly and get in the right shape best as possible, as quick as possible. So these practice games are definitely, especially the first one against New York, it's definitely about us, but obviously we want to win.
Yeah.
For me, like, there's never a game that I don't want to win, and like, there's never a game that I won't give more than I can. So I think it's a mixture of everything, but at the end of the day, we want to trial stuff. We want to set everything up. We want to pretty much just focus on ourselves, but enjoy it.
Yeah, for sure. So, like, with that being said, then, like, what in your mind, like, what's a successful preseason game like? Just say like for you personally, like, what will make you wake up on Saturday morning and be really happy with yourself and how you performed in the preseason game?
Just having the right mindset. From everyone's got the right attitude. Like, if we can go in there and say that we're very physical, I'm happy, because the learning can take an extra couple of weeks and all that, but the mindset's something that is just what you got between your shoulders, and as long as that's good, I can leave the first practice game happy.
We're gonna take a quick step away from MLR and talk about your international career. Now, your Canadian career can be traced back to a conversation with Ray Barkwill in Kamaishi in 2019. So what was discussed, and how did that relationship come about in the first place?
So the relationship started back in a while ago now. I think it'd be 2012, when so Ray was playing for the Premiership team, and I was only, so the Premiership team was the Open Division in Perth, and I was 17, and I was playing with him, and we just got along. He was one of the older bulls, and I was just just grew a friendship because that's the great thing about footy. And then like I noticed that while I was in Kamaishi, I noticed he was on the tour, and I was like, oh, I would love to go see him again and catch up. And just in that conversation, we're just spitballing, and he was the one that said, well, hey, look, do you want to have a chat with Kingsley Jones? And I was like, well, yeah, if I can. And then pretty much we set up a meeting, and I had a chat with him, and then the ball started rolling. So that's pretty much what happened. And I was very grateful for that conversation I had with Ray.
Did talking to Ray and Kingsley Jones, did that help kind of drive a little bit of the motivation to come over and play in MLR in the first place as well?
Yeah, 100%. I was looking. That was one of the first things I said. Once in that period, because I didn't know if I was at that stage. I hadn't signed with the Sunwolves yet, and I was looking into it. And I said, "Well, what are some options here that we could look into?" Jerkin, and I asked for his opinion, and he was happy with whatever I did. He said, as long as you stay in a professional league, then we can look at you as an option. And then sort of just all worked out.
So obviously from that conversation, you played great in your first year in LA, and then ended up with a spot on the Canadian national team. And your first international test match was against England at Twickenham. So how were you feeling going into that, and what was that experience like?
But it was another one of those unforgettable moments. It was playing in that stadium is world class, and I'm forever grateful for it. Like playing against England as well. Yeah, it was very special. Like I'll always be thankful for it.
Did you have like any friends, family that you're able to kind of share that with? Anybody able to make the trip, or I guess not, maybe because
through COVID we couldn't, but I did have all my close mates at a pub in Perth watching it, and they've
that's cool.
Still watching. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. So,
yeah.
FaceTime them after the game, and
yeah. No,
I realized halfway through that question what I was asking. I was like, I remember when the game took place. Yeah, that's. Did you have any are there any what are some of like your best experiences that you kind of had in that like first couple tours with Canada as well?
So it definitely would be when we beat USA in the first qualifier. That was a special moment, especially because of how hard we were working before that. We did have another very close moment that could have been another special moment with the most recent game, the Namibia game. That one hurt to loss, because the lead up to it, we're working hard, we're improving so much. The young fellas were really stepping up, and I feel if we left that game with a win, that would have been really special for me, because it would have been just to prove that we are going the right direction. We're giving young guys an experience that they need. And yet, no, it was just as unfortunately we couldn't come away with the win there, and that's just how rugby goes. But it was a special game for me, and I but it was close. We nearly got it.
Yeah, that was a good game. I would have loved to see you guys pull that out as well. You mentioned the game against the USA in Newfoundland, and that's where you scored your first international try as well. So and that was a big one too, because that brought the game back to USA scored early, and then your try kind of swung the momentum of that game basically completely, and you guys able to come away with the win. So like what was that moment like for you as well, getting not only your first try, but your first try in your first game on Canadian soil in obviously a World Cup qualifier, so a massive occasion too.
And especially at St. John's, it had such a big culture there, and it was very special, mate. Like you don't realize how special it is in the moment, and you're obviously really excited, but then it's these sort of moments you look back on when later on in life, and you think, geez, that was nice. That was a very special moment. I'm very lucky to have that. But no, yeah, it was. I was just happy that there was a few blokes who had that was their debut, and if they were to win on their debut on Canadian soil, that's pretty special as well. So I was also really happy for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And you kind of mentioned the game against Namibia, most recent test match that Rugby Canada has played, and you sound pretty like optimistic about the direction that Rugby Canada's headed. So, I mean, that was kind of going to be like one of our questions. Obviously, there's the disappointment of not qualifying for the World Cup, but you kind of sound optimistic about where the program's going in the future. Is that kind of an accurate assessment of how you're feeling?
I definitely think, we are taking the right steps forward because we need players that have the best experience, and it's hard to get out in international to go play in France and Japan. And, it's really hard to get involved in those leagues, especially now. It's going to get even harder. So the thing is, we need to get as many Canadian rugby players to have the best experience around the best players to develop early. And, it's good to get them as many tests if they can early as well. So by the time the next World Cup is going around, you got a lot of guys who it's not their debut as a qualifier. It's, they got 15 caps and they're much more prepared. So mentally they can go in a lot more confidently. But no, I definitely think it's in the right step, and I really hope the MLR is going to continue to build so that these Canadian rugby players can have those experiences with superstars of the game, because that's what's really going to be a changing factor is getting these players around superstars, because you can improve so much quicker, so much better, and you can really understand where you're at with around those players.
When you say get some of these players around superstars, are you referring to just players on the Canadian national team? Or are you also talking like MLR teams? And like, say for yourself, you mentioned all the guys that you played with in LA.
Yeah. So it's really guys who have had many test caps. Those guys are really going to have the right mindset. They're going to have the right attitude, and they really can steer people in the right directions. That's the best scenario. But you can also go to people who have, just got lots of caps, or many have been in many different sort of professional leagues. Just people who are very experienced and know exactly. Because the hardest thing is trying to find players who have the right mindset and have done it for multiple years, and they're willing to share it with the younger fellas.
What do you think that both like Rugby Canada and World Rugby need to do to ensure that Canada is the best prepared it can be for qualifying for 2027?
Yeah, because it's a hard thing, because it's hard to sort of get a grasp about. You're looking at the tier 2 nations, that gap is getting so tight, right? Even because Chile have improved very well. They've now qualified. So there's all the gap's getting so small. You still got the tier 1 nations who are doing very well, and there's a little bridge between those two. But however, it's a hard one because everyone's getting tighter. So we just need to do the best that we can to get our boys with the most experience. That's just the thing, and having the MLR will help, and that just needs to make sure that it keeps building, and the fan base needs to keep building so that we're able to, invest more into the league so that the league can develop, so you can attract a more frequent amount of superstars of the league that can provide even the American players. Like, you can provide anyone with some good experience, and they're just going to develop. So it's a hard one to sort of grasp because everyone's getting better and the game's getting tighter. So just got to keep working. The good thing about the mindset of Rugby Canada now is that we're trying to get everyone experience. So we're trying to make sure that the guys that are coming up are ready.
You did mention that when you were talking about the Namibian game. So, like, with that being said, like, is there any of like the younger players that got their first caps again, against Namibia and Belgium earlier this year? Is there anybody of that kind of like next generation, I guess, of Canadian players that you were excited about as you were, on the pitch with them and on the last tour?
Yeah, there's definitely a few that I'm really excited for. There's one that definitely stands out. Unfortunately, he was actually injured this year, and that's Mason Flesh. I'm currently working with him now in Toronto, but like, he's a kid that needs to be put in the right spot to just develop, because he's just a sponge, right? So I think out of everyone, I'm really excited to see Mason just develop, because he's got a lot of natural talent, right? So yeah, I'm definitely excited for Mason, 100%.
For sure. Yeah. As Arrows fans, so are we.
Well, obviously nothing's been announced for the Canadian men's national team of any games coming up. Obviously, it's a World Cup year, so things are more up in the air, and obviously there isn't a competition like the Six Nations or the Rugby Championship that's a fixture. But we are hoping that you guys get to step out on the pitch, ideally on Canadian soil at some time this year. And if it's in Toronto, then obviously we'll be there to cheer all you guys on. But I'm going to bring it back to MLR as we wrap this up. So obviously the new season's coming up. We have the Chicago Hounds coming into MLR as well. A lot of familiar faces. I guess you'd say Corey would be in that squad. So are there any games that you're most looking forward to for the 2023 season?
The one that definitely stands out is actually the Free Jacks. There's a lot of
nice.
There's a lot of Canadians over there that I'm really excited for, because I'm hoping it's going to be a very physical game, and I hope there's a bit of a salt in the wounds for everyone. So I hope it's going to be quite entertaining and quite physical.
Do you want us to give you like 30 seconds to cut like a vintage like WWE Rock style heel promo for this game? Get the boys fired up on either side. We have to get this rivalry started somehow.
We have to. Well, the amount of bloody Canadians have gone over to the Free Jacks, we've got to get something going.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, that's gonna be a big one. It's fun. I can't wait for those two. Both the one in Toronto and the one in New England. That should be a good time. This should be do those games kind of mean a little bit more to you when there's a lot of like other Canadians on the squad? Because we've asked a couple of guys this, and there's certain players that seem to kind of elevate their game slightly a little bit if there's a Canadian on the other side.
Yeah. No, there's a few games that I think I don't need any sort of extra motivation for.
No motivation needed.
Yeah.
So now, as we said, Toronto's got their first preseason game against New York. That'll be in Michigan this coming Friday. We are recording on Tuesday, January the 24th. But New York will also be the home opener on April 8th. So, Corey, you're looking forward to playing. You said about playing in front of Canadians on home turf with St. John's. Are you looking forward to that home opener against New York in April?
Well, 100%. I hope we get a good crowd there, and I hope there's a lot of energy so we can perform and do the best that we can to, beat the defending champs.
I think everyone's always excited. Like Toronto always has to wait a little bit longer for a home game, so definitely looking forward to it. And finally, what are you hoping to see from both MLR and Rugby Canada over like the next few years?
Just development. I hope the MLR continues to build. I feel, that's a huge thing that needs to happen for Rugby Canada and USA. And then for Rugby Canada, I just really hope that, the young players get the experience and they develop as well from year to year. So I hope, when we have those test games, you can see the improvements from the previous years onwards. And, that's what I really want to see. I want to see that the boys are developing, they're getting more physical, they're getting better, they're getting more skills, and they've got that hunger, so I hope that really begins to build.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to it. Well, we're going to end the podcast there. Corey, thank you so much for joining us for this interview. And thanks to all our listeners and watchers for joining us for another episode. If you like listening to this podcast, you can find more on Spotify, Anchor FM, and Apple Podcasts. If you like watching videos of podcasts, as well as some quick interviews we have with players, remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And in fact, you can find us across all social media, including Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, all at the Rouge Rugby. But Corey, if people are now really interested into seeing the Arrows play live and looking forward to that game on April 8th, where can they get their tickets for those matches?
They can get them at torontoarrows.com, and I hope to see you guys there.
We will be there with bells on. Well, I can't speak for Derek, but I may have bells. Derek, where can the fine people find you on social media?
I'm at Brissette the Jet across all social media, and perhaps starting a We Hate the Free Jacks fan page somewhere.
And you can find me across social media at Hardman, spelled H4RDMAN. Well, Derek, thanks you for joining for hosting. Corey, amazing. Thank you for joining us for this episode. And thank you all for joining us on another episode of the Rouge Rugby podcast, where we talk about real Canadian rugby. We hope you can join us again next time.